Thank you for joining us. I'm Bridie McGreavy. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Communication and Journalism at the University of Maine and a faculty fellow with the Mitchell Center. I'm co-presenting this talk with Dr. Kaitlyn Haynal, who's a postdoctoral research associate with the Maine-eDNA project. And I'd also like to acknowledge the collaborators on this research listed on this slide. Our talk introduces engaged communication research focused on the Maine-eDNA project. In the next 10 minutes, we plan to introduce key elements of our theory and method that guide our work. We'll talk about the implications of our research for team science and knowledge co-production and highlight some of the initial insights coming out of our analysis. Then we'll conclude with next steps for continuing this research over the next 4 years. As anyone who's tried to collaborate can probably recognize, collaboration can be challenging. These challenges become even harder in a transdisciplinary project. We define transdisciplinarity as a collaborative effort that aims to link multiple forms of knowledge with decision-making and action across contexts. Transdisciplinarity can create unique challenges for communication because it's goal-oriented, often occurs over broad geographic distance, involves multiple institutions, and can take longer periods of time. There's a lot of existing research on challenges in collaboration and transdisciplinarity, many of which relate to a diverse set of differences that can make it hard for people to connect with and understand each other. These differences include worldviews, forms of knowledge, perceptions of the focal problem, previous experiences with collaboration, identities and cultures, orientations to decision-making and leadership, and more. Yet we also know that there are specific communication capacities and commitments that are essential for connecting across difference. And these include listening, respect for difference, reflexivity, which is a practice of reflecting as part of a social relationship, working towards a shared language and problem formation, transparency and inclusive approaches to decision-making, and multiple forms of leadership. Despite what's already known about what it means to communicate for collaboration and transdisciplinarity, there are still huge gaps in knowledge in communication studies, science of team science, and this emerging science of eDNA. And our research aims to address these gaps. Our guiding research question asks, how does communication shape our eDNA-focused transdisciplinary collaborations? Given the overwhelming number of potential factors that shape any collaboration, we need an approach to communication that fits this level of complexity, while at the same time allows us to study and try to shape the communication patterns as they emerge. So our approach to communication assumes that what communication is and how communication comes to matter will be shaped by the situation at hand, where communication as a phenomenon is not necessarily defined in advance, but emerges through interactions and relationships. To try to wade through some of the complexity, this emergent approach to communication, we pay attention to specific dimensions that help guide our sense-making about what's meaningful and how we might need to adjust our communication. First, we focus on the strategic and symbolic dimensions of communication, attending to the ways in which people use symbols to make meaning. For example, the frequent use of the double helix as a visual image has become a focal point and has shaped our discussions about research ethics, and Kaitlyn's going to talk about this in just a moment. Second, we study the relational aspects, or how communication shapes our sense of our own identities, our interpersonal relationships, our motivations to participate in this project, and so forth. Third, in the context of COVID-19, we've been particularly interested in how this contextual factor has shaped our collaboration, as well as the role of communication technologies in shaping our project. We've been spending a lot of time on Zoom like everybody else, and we're really interested in understanding what impact does this have in our collaboration. Finally, we take a critical orientation. We pay attention to how power dynamics, and especially those that relate to knowledge production within and among scientific organizations, shapes our communication as well. Our methodology is both ethnographic, based in ongoing observations, and engaged, where the research is also based in partnerships and knowledge co-production. Within this overarching methodology, we use a host of diverse mixed methods, including ongoing participant observations, formal interviews, surveys, participatory modeling, and document and corpus analysis. In addition to studying communication, we also want to provide more immediate feedback to our project to help shape communication as it emerges. This feedback intends to promote iterative cycles of learning to help us all connect across multiple forms of difference and over time work to co-create knowledge that is meaningful to us and to our host of partners. With that, I'll turn it over to Kaitlyn to share some of our related insights that are coming out of this intersection of communication and knowledge co-production.
Thanks, Bridie. So the first of our research insights focuses on communication and knowledge co-production. Exercises like participatory knowledge mapping, where all participants contribute to creating a shared concept map, provide a means for returning to basic questions such as, what is eDNA? This is especially important for transdisciplinary projects where participants come from diverse educational backgrounds and therefore bring different vocabularies and experiences to the research. Knowledge co-production is often context-based, pluralistic, goal-oriented, and interactive. This process is designed to increase feedback and participation through establishment of communication and relationship-building norms for meetings and conversations. The creation of equitable and learning-oriented spaces has allowed for rich discussion on emergent and complex matters like the role of ethics in eDNA research. Which brings us to our second research insight, emphasizing ethics of eDNA. Egregious examples of research misconduct involving human and non-human animal subjects contributed to public outcry in the mid-20th century, which resulted in the formal establishment of research regulation, including ethical review boards and responsible conduct training programs like those mandated by the National Science Foundation. These regulatory processes highlight ethical research commitments such as the need to avoid harm, to seek mutual benefits, and to support justice. However, there are a lot of gray areas to ethical research that go beyond what is regulated by the law. These ethical gray areas can be identifiable by those moments when you find yourself asking, what should I do? Some of these initial questions surfaced in our transdisciplinary research and partnerships and in communicating Maine-eDNA. Transdisciplinary research relies on collaborative data collection, creating new tools, and diverse partnership involvement. One of our earliest ethical conversations about communicating our project centered around the meaning of the double helix and the history of eugenics as a concern for communicating with Wabanaki communities. These questions and more illustrate the importance of ethics as a practice of continual questioning throughout the lifespan of the project. The project's goal of establishing Maine as a national leader in eDNA-based environmental monitoring and coastal sustainability makes ethical considerations significant. What does an ethics of eDNA mean at each stage of research, education, and outreach? What if people were to use our research in ways we didn't anticipate? What if they contribute to unequal power dynamics in the Gulf of Maine? What does mutually beneficial really mean? And of course, these questions barely scratch the surface. The Team Science Group has established numerous initiatives that build upon discussions that pointed to the need for increased attention to ethics of eDNA. In September, we distributed a project-wide memo on the history of research ethics as a shared basis for knowledge co-production. Our fall all-hands meeting featured an ethics discussion, including introductory remarks on the history of research ethics, a large group discussion looking at ethical questions in genetics research, and small group discussions to generate specific questions, commitments, and next steps for our work on Maine-eDNA. These discussions shape the direction of the Science of Team Science Working Group priorities for 2021. That has included an integrated ethics focus into project-based courses for graduate students, plans for a discussion panel with invited ethics experts, and a project workshop where researchers and community partners can advance Maine-eDNA specific ethical considerations. Third research insight centers on COVID-19 and communication using preliminary findings from our mixed methods data collection. Both laboratory and field-based research experienced significant delays and new restrictions for collaboration. Individual shifts in workload and research capacities reflect increased care responsibilities and changes in leadership. Quarantine has reduced face-to-face communication with researchers and community partners alike. The drastic shift to virtual communication venues has strained some relationships and strengthened others, exacerbating the digital divide. Those who joined the project prior to COVID and those who onboarded in the midst of quarantine have expressed disparate experiences with relationship building processes that reflect the value of institutional memory for collaboration. New temporal adjustments to research planning and training mean that some graduate students have had to develop new research questions. And additionally, emergent sources of uncertainty suggest the importance of communicating precarity in our eDNA work as the project advances. In this presentation, we have shared what our engaged communication research looks like for the Maine-eDNA project. This includes key elements of communication theory and methods that guide our collaborative work, implications of our research for advancing team science, and key insights from our analysis related to knowledge co-production, ethics of eDNA, and the impacts of COVID-19 on communication. In the next steps of our research, we will continue to support ethics-focused dialogues and graduate seminars and the development of a discussion panel and workshop. We're in the process of developing new surveys for internal and external collaborators to better understand how the project is being communicated and what needs remain. Ongoing research by Team Science graduate students supports efforts to expand engagement with our partners and the creation of more engaged digital media. These steps highlight our commitment to recognizing the numerous and complex ways in which communication is vital for building strong collaborative experiences.